In our last exercise, we created the Hello World program and got that working. And the program now spits out what we're looking for. But hopefully from previous programming experience, you realize that a program like this has critical errors. And the biggest one being the style is incorrect. Every programming language has a certain style on things you should be doing. Just like in English class, there's a certain style in writing an essay. It has to be in paragraphs. Paragraphs are indented. Sentences starts with a capital. They end with some kind of punctuation. All of those kinds of rules also apply to code. So what we're going to do in this lesson is create the Hello World program with proper style. So I'm just going to take the URL that we're given for this assignment and accept it. That will create our GitHub repository, and it will also create our code space. So we'll open up our code space and we'll start. To begin with, we'll just take our old code that we had from before, and we're just going to bring that over. So now that our IDE is all ready to go, we're going to create our file once again, call it helloworld.java, and we'll just paste in what we had from last time. So we know that we can do ls for list, and we can do Java compile, do helloworld.java. It will compile our program, and then we can run it. And that works. You will notice there's also several other files and folders in our document. We're going to talk about them later, but the one we're going to talk about right now is this run linter. So it obviously runs a linter, and a linter is a piece of software that looks at our code and does what's called static code analysis. And in our case, it's going to be checking our stylistic errors. So there's many ways to do this, and there's many different styles of checking. What we're going to be using is in this folder right here that I've already populated. We have a linter, and we're going to be using the Oracle Sun rules, since Oracle is the owner of Java, the rules that they have for actually what the style of Java should be. And I've created this helper little script, and what it does is, oddly enough, it's a Java program that actually checks your Java code. So in the linter, there is this Java program called check style, and it then takes the rules in this XML file and it looks at all the Java files that we have in our home directory, or sorry, the current directory, and checks to make sure they're following the rules. So to run this program, I'm just going to say in the current directory, run the program, the bash shell script called run linter, and it will go off and it will check our code. And sadly, you will notice we have many, many different errors. So at the moment, we have 4 that we need to fix. And the first one is right here. So it actually tells you what the problem is and how you can fix it. And in our program, it says the file does not end with a new line. So if we go back to our program, you will notice that the file clearly does not end with a new line. So a style that is very common in programming languages is that you need a completely blank line at the end of your program. So we can just run this again. I didn't type in the command. I just pressed the up arrow because in bash shell script, that will give us our last command over again. And actually, before I do that, I'm just going to clear out. There's a command called clear, which removes everything from the terminal, and we can run it again. And you will notice now we only have 3 errors because we corrected one. Okay, so this next error is a little more convoluted. Utility classes should not have a public or default constructor. And to fix that problem, what we need to do is we need to go into our Java code and we need to fix several things. Now, hopefully from previous coding classes that you've had, you should realize that the very first thing that we should have in any program is a comment. So I'm just going to paste in the standard comment that we're going to be using. So this is a classic example. Just going to fix the spacing right here. The standard is that there's usually one space here. There we go. So a slash and a star means the beginning of a comment, and then a star and a slash means it's the end of a multi-line comment. And we usually put a space and then a star, so all the stars line up together. And then we have just one simple sentence with a period saying what this program does. Normally I put what this program is titled and what it does. In our case, it just prints to the terminal. These 3 lines show who the author of the program is. So you would put your name there, what version is it, and what is the date that it was written. So that's super common at the very beginning. Hopefully you've done comments in code before. The next thing we need to add is what's called a Java document or a Java doc. And we need to put another comment, but you'll notice it starts with a slash and 2 stars, which means that it's a Java document. And this is the comment for our class, which we're going to be talking about what classes are next. In our case, you could have several classes in a file. This is what all of the file does. This is what just this particular class does. Clearly, since we are only going to have one class, these two are very similar. The next thing we need to fix is actually the standard is that it should say final here. We'll talk about why that is later. The next weird thing is before we actually use this public static void main, we should be ensuring that this class cannot be instantiated. It's that big word we're going to learn later. So we're going to add a couple lines of code here that actually prevent that from happening. So I'm just going to paste this in. And you will notice, as I just said, this prevents this class from being instantiated. And you will notice the name here is identical to the name of our class, which is identical to the name of our file. So we're going to talk about later on what this is actually doing. For now, we're always going to have this section. Whatever you call your program will be the same as your file, and you will have this private here that also has that. Okay, next thing we need to do. This method right here also needs a comment, so we're going to add a comment for that as well. So this is also a JavaDoc comment, and it's the starting main function. So Java goes through all your files in your current directory, and it looks for a very particular line that says public static void main, and it starts there. So we currently aren't passing any arguments in, so there's a comment just saying that we're not passing any arguments in. Just like we should be adding final here, we should actually also be adding final here. We should also, inside here, have a comment of what it's actually doing. So we're just going to say that. And when we run our program, it's really helpful because you've noticed when we're running commands, Linux sometimes just gives you no feedback at all when you run something, which can be a little confusing. So it's really helpful to the user if you let them know that your program actually finished correctly. So we are always going to have a line that says done at the very end. This just makes sure that there's a blank line. /n in Linux means carriage return, and then done. So we're always going to have that at the very end. And if I've done this correctly, and we actually run this command again, you'll notice it started auditing and now it's done. So this is the perfect stylized version of our Hello World program. So let's make sure that it actually runs again. So I'm just going to do list. We're going to recompile it and didn't get any errors. So we know that's good. So it's recreated this class. If you do put the // which technically means run from the same directory, you would assume that it would work, but you'll notice that you actually get an error. So there's technical reasons, but we're not going to get into why that is. We will just always type in Java and do not put the // And there we go. Our program runs. We have a space done so that the user knows that the program is actually finished and everything is now working.